It's probably the first game for a good 4 or 5 weeks where we look like we're going to have some positive choices to make in terms of who's not just on the pitch but who's on the bench also. I want to make sure that those travelling fans tomorrow, and I think we've sold out the away allocation, that they watch the game and watch their team, and by the end of it think to themselves, wow, there was only one team who really wanted it, and we wanted it more than Oxford, no matter what they're playing for.
Ed, how's the squad looking? We saw a couple of players from a photo with social media, but probably too early for them. But anyone likely to be available for Oxford?
Yeah, much better. Much better. It's probably the first game for a good 4 or 5 weeks where we look like we're going to have some positive choices to make in terms of who's not just on the pitch but who's on the bench also. So Maamma's been back in full training all of this week, which is really good news for him, for the team. James Abankwah is also back, fully fit. He failed a late fitness test on the day of the game against Charlton, which stopped him having any part or even being on the bench there against Charlton. And so he's back. Edo Kiembe is also back. Not that he was injured, but he came back from his international duty and all the celebrations with the Congo after their World Cup qualification. So that's also really good for the team. So that's directly for this game. But then also longer term, Cipriano's been back out on the pitch. Vata has also been back out on the pitch. So they're progressing well. And then Mike Bolu and Jeremy Ngaki are also slowly getting back up to speed. And I don't know if they'll be back with us next week or the week after, but they're looking much better. And then the last injury, it's nothing to do with us as such, but the fact that Conor Cody is fit and healthy is also just something to highlight. And I know that Tomins spoke to him earlier in the week, so it was good news that he was okay and that there was no big issue following what happened on Monday.
Good news, and I know there's not much you can do about it now, but if only all of these ones were coming back 4 or 6 weeks ago. But that's
it would have. I mean, we know it would have been a completely different narrative, completely different energy, completely different momentum. Even just having one or two back for the Charlton game there on Monday was a big difference. Having one fit fullback or fully fit fullback was a positive, but it is what it is, and so it's now just for us to create this really positive momentum over the last games and this last stretch of the season, starting with our trip away to Oxford tomorrow.
Just on Kiembe, I think the international was on the Wednesday. I can't remember what it was, but then we didn't see him either on the Friday or the Monday. Were you expecting him back, or was that just a question of celebrating really, really hard?
Yeah, it's something that he could do nothing about and that we could do nothing about. There were governmental obligations from their side, and yeah, he wasn't the only player. All of the players who were selected for that last playoff game were in the same situation. So there were lots of clubs. I know that West Ham had the same issue with Wan-Bissaka. I know that many clubs in France and in Belgium also had the same issue. So it's it is what it is. On the one hand, we're really happy for him and really proud that he'll be at the World Cup in only a few weeks' time now, or a couple of months. But definitely it was disappointing not to have him with us for the QPR or the Charlton game.
Just on Maamma, it's a testament to him that he has been such a loss for someone so young to be such a key figure for Watford. Yeah. He's been out for a while now, so could he be involved this weekend, or will you have to go slowly with him?
No, we need to take our time with him. There's a chance that he can be with us and be on the bench tomorrow. There's, for him to be starting the game tomorrow is unrealistic. But no, it's a credit to him in terms of the impact and how important he's been to the team this season. That's one thing. It's also, credit to him for how he's managed this injury, how professional he's been, how he's done absolutely everything to be back on time, which is the case. He's got a World Cup spot that he's playing for as well. And he wants to just kind of recreate the vibe that he created for himself and for the team for quite a large part of the season. And just from a selfish point of view, it's been disappointing not being able to have him with us. We saw the impact that he had against Preston in my first game. We saw the impact he had in that first 15 minutes home against Derby as well. And so just to have him back now is a really good thing for everyone.
What's been the response of Bove? He was given that start, wasn't he? And it didn't quite work out for him at QPR, and then was dropped for the next game. Has he been okay? Accepted it?
Yeah, I mean, he wasn't the only one. Pierre Ekwa was another one. And so it's not all about Edoardo Bove. I know that he grabs quite a lot of headlines. But, I mean, yeah, similar to Pierre, I think there were a couple of factors. There was the fact that we, it was a really quick turnaround from the QPR game to the Charlton game. So that was one factor. We wanted fresh legs for the Monday. Also, the fact that QPR is probably our worst performance since I've been here. We didn't control midfield. We didn't create enough pressing moments without the ball. And just overall, it was a turgid and difficult performance. So I think it was logical and it made sense to make changes from that game. And I think the positive with Edoardo is that he's come on really well in a few games, and so actually he was pushing for the start, and then his performances on training. Myself and the whole staff, we've all seen that he's been really good in training. Then there's a big difference starting a game, and maybe it was my mistake and our mistake to have started him. Maybe he's not quite ready for the tempo and the intensity of a championship game, and to be starting a championship game, we mustn't forget how long he's been out for. So there's that factor, and also just the difference in terms of adapting from playing Serie A football with Fiorentina or AS Roma, which is a completely different story to playing championship football. So there were so many factors to take into account that it will take him time to be back to the real Bove, and that's where we're at, really, just work in progress.
Look at Irankunda taken off in the previous game. He looked really down. He looks a bit short of confidence. He could do with the goal, couldn't he? How's he been?
He's been good. I mean, I think he's one of the players in the team and in the dressing room who are very mature and who are very self-aware. So he knows that he's in the last maybe 2 or 3 games he's not been in the best vein of form. He hasn't had the chances that he was having in previous weeks. And there again, there were several factors. He hasn't quite had the service in the last couple of games that he'd had previously. But it's not just down to the service. Also, his defensive work rate hasn't quite been there either in the last couple. And that was the reason why he came off actually a little bit earlier than what he's used to in the game against Charlton. And that communication with him has been really clear for the past few days, and he knows that. As I say, he's really self-aware. And he knows that he's not quite been on it. That happens, He's still young, he's still learning. But it's really positive and cool to have players who are coachable and who are open to that feedback and that constructive criticism. And I've no doubt that he'll bounce back, starting from tomorrow, if that's starting or if that's maybe having an impact from the bench. Sometimes it helps a player to, just have that change of energy in terms of always starting and then being able to come on and have an impact from the bench. So that option exists because we've got the threat of Doumbia or Semedo. So it's really positive for me to be able to have those options and to be able to make a positive choice.
Barring a miracle, it's championship football next season. Are you already involved in talks with the ones above as to how you want that squad to be shaped next season?
Yes, and we're the talks about pre-season are already in full flow. How long pre-season is going to be, how many friendly games, when the friendly games are being played. The club's already busy in terms of making sure that the friendly games are organised and so on and so forth. So no, there's already a lot of planning that's started to take place, and it's just finding that balance for me and for us to be very present in the moment and to make sure that we're fully focused on the here and now, but also just in the back of our mind to have those plans in place for pre-season, because we know how quickly that comes around, and just finding the balance of both of those.
Are you looking forward to being involved in those talks about how the squad will shape up next season?
Yeah, definitely. But they're also, that will come. These are still early talks because we've still got a lot of football to play between now and the end of season. So spending too much time in those talks is not the priority. The priority is just winning away to Oxford tomorrow and putting in a really good performance. And then, maybe on the back of the Oxford game, there are 48 hours there where we can have some more discussions and go into a little bit more detail, but then again, switch the focus to make sure that we're really ready and firing for next Saturday as well. So I'm really cautious of that. Of course, that the talks about next season are there. I'm really excited about it, but that excitement isn't as big as the excitement of preparing tomorrow's game.
What do you want to see from your side tomorrow at Oxford? They're absolutely fighting for their lives and going to be bang up for it. And Watford are going into the game, some would say, without too much to play for. You won't look at it like that. But what do you want to see from your players?
I want to make sure that those travelling fans tomorrow, and I think we've sold out the away allocation, that they watch the game and watch their team, and by the end of it think to themselves, wow, there was only one team who really wanted it, and we wanted it more than Oxford, no matter what they're playing for. If they're playing for, their life in the Championship, mid-table, whatever, just that by the end of it, everybody thinks to themselves, wow, Watford were more up for it than anybody else. That's one thing. And then second, that the performance is, what we saw for large parts of the Charlton game. And large parts of the Wrexham or the Derby game that we've had in the past couple of weeks. And just to be able to, over 90 minutes, have that consistency of performance, being aggressive in our pressing, moving the ball quickly, creating the chances that we did against Charlton. And I know that if we do those two things, then we'll give ourselves the best chance of having a positive result by the end of it.
And just a final one, is it important to you that you put on a better performance than what we saw at QPR?
Yeah, definitely. But it's, the performance you put on display every game is important. And you'll have the odds over the course of a season or a stretch of 10 games, you'll have the odd performance that's below par. And it's in those moments, actually, when you realise and you feel that you're not quite at it today and passes aren't quite sharp enough or you're not quite in it, that despite that, you can still, get a result out of it. And we've done that okay in one or two games, but probably not, or definitely not that QPR game last week, because we felt even in the last quarter of an hour there was still a result there to be got out of it. But that's just the emergency scenario of, hang on, maybe we're not as good as what we want to be. So it's, as the team grows and as the team learns about those different scenarios, I know that we'll get better at that. But first and foremost, the focus is on putting in a really good performance, being aggressive, playing forwards, and showing what we did against Charlton. Because it's fine to talk about QPR, but the most recent game is that game here on Monday against Charlton, where I think it was 30 or 31 shots, which is, in terms of numbers, pretty exceptional. So we want to continue on that flow and that momentum, and I'll finish off where we started. That having so many players back, so many options available, gives us a much better chance of being able to do so.
Just one more. You talked about Maamma looking at the World Cup. You've got players out of contract, players who may be looking at their futures. How much do you tap into that individual motivation, particularly at this stage of the season, to get the players going?
Those are all talks that happen and that take place with the players individually, because there's always you've always got those two dimensions of talks. You've got the collective story, and you've got the collective flow that you're in, and then you've got all of those individual stories that are happening at the same time. And it's one of our challenges as managers, as head coaches, is how to get both working together. And so we are definitely tapping into all of the individual motivations that are there, and lots of players are playing for different things. And that's always the case, beginning of season, end of season, when you're close to a transfer window, and at any stage of the season, those narratives and those stories change. And there are some really positive individual stories that we want to tap into. I think one great example has been Imrân Louza. The form that he's come into over the past few weeks, the work that we've put on with him on the pitch, off the pitch here at the training ground, is starting to really show and to bear its fruit on the pitch as well. And he's got that World Cup place that he's playing for. He wants to be a starting player for Australia. He wants to have an impact this summer. So, definitely we're using that to our advantage and to his advantage.